Whispers of Forgotten Love. The Secrets of St. Mary's.
Presented to you by Hugglesby Stories.
Emily and Jack leaned closer to the photograph, trying to make out the faint signpost in the background. The letters were barely legible, but Emily could just make out part of the name. It seemed to say St. Mary's. Jack suggested it might be a church, as many old villages had a St. Mary's church. The two of them exchanged excited glances, feeling that they were getting closer to a breakthrough. They decided to visit the nearest St. Mary's church in the area, hoping it might hold the key to the mystery. Jack shared that William's death had been reported to his family as a training accident and that he was supposedly buried near his military base. Due to the family's circumstances following Jack's grandfather's death soon after the war, they had even missed enrolling William for the Return of the Dead program. One of Jack's main reasons for searching for his uncle was to find and visit his grave. With renewed determination, they prepared for the journey to St. Mary's Church. The following morning, Emily and Jack set off to find the church. They drove through the picturesque countryside, their minds racing with possibilities. After some time, they arrived at a small charming village with an old stone church named St. Mary's. It was nestled among trees, with a peaceful graveyard surrounding it. The church looked as though it had stood there for centuries. Emily felt a shiver of anticipation as they approached the entrance. Inside the church, they were greeted by an elderly priest who introduced himself as Father Thomas. He welcomed them warmly. Emily explained they were researching family history and mentioned the name William. Father Thomas's eyes lit up with recognition. He told them he had heard stories from some of the villagers about an American soldier named William who used to visit the church during the war. William often came to pray and would spend time in the churchyard, writing letters. Emily and Jack exchanged hopeful looks. They asked Father Thomas if he had any records or documents from that time. The priest led them to a small room in the back of the church, filled with dusty books and old papers. He pointed to a shelf with parish records and other past documents. Emily and Jack began searching through the papers, looking for any mention of William or Magrat. After a while, Jack found a guest book from the 1940s. As they flipped through the pages, they found William's name written several times, along with Magrat's. The entries were often signed W&M, and sometimes included short notes like, "A beautiful day." Emily felt a lump in her throat as she read the notes, imagining her aunt and William visiting the church together, sharing their hopes and dreams. As they continued to search the room, Emily and Jack went through shelves filled with dusty, old books that had clearly not been touched in years. Despite their thorough search, they found nothing of significance. Emily felt a pang of disappointment as they left the room, but Father Thomas suggested they try looking in the storeroom in the church basement. He mentioned that it hadn't been opened in years and that perhaps something had been overlooked there. Emily and Jack followed Father Thomas down a narrow staircase leading to the basement. The storeroom was dimly lit, filled with boxes and long-forgotten items covered in dust. They began rifling through the boxes, hoping to find something that could provide answers about William. After some time, Jack stumbled upon a small metal box tucked away under a pile of old hymnals. The box was locked, and there was no key in sight, suggesting it might have been hidden away intentionally. Unable to find a key, Jack decided to try another approach. Using a small iron rod he found among the storeroom's clutter, he gave the lock a few hard hits. The lock finally gave way, and the box creaked open. Inside, they discovered a collection of personal items: a silver locket, some letters, and a small notebook. Emily's breath caught as she picked up the letters. They were from Evelyn to William, describing secret meetings at St. Mary's. The letters detailed a betrayal by someone close to them. The notebook contained William's sketches of the church and cryptic messages about a final meeting. Emily and Jack exchanged stunned glances as they read through the letters. The contents confirmed that William had been involved in something dangerous and that Evelyn was closely tied to it. They now understood that William and Evelyn had been working together against a betrayal. There was something else too in the box: a bundle of letters tied with a red ribbon. The letters were addressed to someone named James Cartwright. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Lieutenant Cartwright, the name from the newspaper article. There were a few notes and letters written by Cartwright too. There was a special letter from William to Cartwright among the few other letters William had written. It did not have the usual direct topics of war, Secret Service, and so on. Instead, It explained Christmas celebrations, event details, and honoring the memories of fallen soldiers. The letters from Cartwright mentioned a plan to meet William at St. Mary's, but something had gone wrong. The last letter spoke of a meeting that would change everything and a warning to keep it secret. Emily and Jack looked at each other, realizing they needed to find out more about Lieutenant Cartwright. Who was he, and what role had he played in William's life? According to the items and letters, it didn't seem that William had kept them, but likely Cartwright did. But why did Cartwright have William's personal letters too? Perhaps after William's death, Cartwright kept those with him. But Cartwright was still living in America. Why didn't he take these items with him when he returned? As Emily read the letters a few times, especially the one written by William differently from beginning to end and from end to beginning, she noticed something suspicious. Emily saw a small postscript at the end of that letter. It said, "For the truth, follow the path to the soldier's rest. The soldier rests 12 feet away and bottom of my heart." Emily looked at Jack, her mind racing. What could it mean? Emily and Jack felt a mix of excitement and dread. The letters confirmed that William and Evelyn were working together on something dangerous, and someone had betrayed them. The reference to a final meeting made Emily wonder if this was where William's story ended. They decided to search the churchyard, thinking there might be a clue in one of the old graves. As they walked among the headstones, Emily noticed a small, weathered marker under a large oak tree. The inscription was barely visible, but she could make out the letters, "Liam Wins." Emily's heart pounded. Could this be the grave of William Winslow? It was Jack's family name, and William was his uncle, whom the army had recorded as dying in a training accident and being buried near the camp. None of William's family had been able to visit at the time, nor later, when the U.S. government offered to return the remains of soldiers who had been buried in the UK. Jack knelt beside the marker, his eyes filling with tears. The thought of his uncle, whom the family had mourned from afar, being here all along overwhelmed him. Emily placed her hand on Jack's shoulder, sharing the silent grief. She thought of William's deep love for Magrat, the story she had heard of their unbreakable bond, and how he had promised to return to her. The marker, though faded, seemed to whisper the story of love and sacrifice, the echoes of William and Magrat's devotion lingering beneath the ancient oak. Emily and Jack spent more than 2 hours near the grave. It was like they had met one of their long-distance relatives and felt reluctant to leave. The day was drawing to a close, and the church bells began to chime. Emily and Jack stood in the quiet church, holding the letters, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on them. They knew they had to continue their search, to follow the path and find the answers they sought. Emily felt a sense of purpose, knowing that she was uncovering a story that needed to be told. As they left the church, Emily glanced back at the grave marker and the oak tree, feeling a connection to the past and a determination to uncover the truth. She knew that the journey was far from over, and that each step brought her closer to understanding. She looked at Jack, who smiled reassuringly, and they walked on together, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They knew the truth about William and Magrat was buried in the past, and they were determined to bring it to light. Emily and Jack sat for some time quietly in the cottage in the evening, their eyes on the letters found earlier that day. The postscript had hinted at another location. "For the truth, follow the path to the soldier's rest. The soldier rests 12 feet away and bottom of my heart." They knew they needed to find this place, believing it might be the key to understanding what had happened to William. The next morning, as the first thing, Jack went to the post office with a message written to a few of his close friends in the USA to look for Lieutenant James Cartwright, who had been stationed in the UK during the war period. After that, Emily and Jack returned to the churchyard, hoping to find more clues. They noticed an overgrown path leading away from the main cemetery, winding into the nearby woods. Referring the words in the letter, they decided to follow it. The path was narrow and shaded by tall trees, creating a sense of mystery and seclusion. As they walked, Emily felt a strange mix of anticipation and unease, wondering what they might discover. After walking for some time, they emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood a simple stone monument, covered in moss and ivy. The monument was engraved with the words, "For our fallen soldiers," and beneath it were several names. Emily and Jack knelt to read the inscriptions, and there among the names, William's name wasn't there anyway. But what to look for there? Jack looked for anything noticeable around the base of the monument. Nothing was found after looking for an hour. Maybe something has been buried?
They had brought a small shovel and a sharp steel rod in case they were required.
Emily eagerly wanted to find something. She too joined Jack in digging underneath the monument. The monument was up to 1 foot below. They dug and shifted the monument slightly by pushing hard. They then continued to dig. They dug for 2 feet, then 3 feet. Finally, up to 4 feet. They both were exhausted. Neither of them had spoken. They just sat on the ground for 1 more hour, silently listening to the sounds of birds, the sound of trees, and the leaves in the wind. It was getting dark, and they decided to come back with heavy hearts. After the exhausting efforts of the day, Jack and Emily returned to the cottage where they had been staying. The frustration of their fruitless search hung heavily in the air. They quietly shared a simple dinner, neither of them saying much. Both were lost in their thoughts, wondering where they might have gone wrong. The fatigue from their digging soon took its toll, and they decided to turn in early. Jack fell asleep almost immediately, but Emily lay awake for a while, replaying the events of the day in her mind. Eventually, the gentle rustling of the leaves outside the window soothed her into sleep. Early the next morning, Emily awoke suddenly, a realization forming in her mind. She remembered the phrase from the letter, "For the truth, follow the path to the soldier's rest. The soldier rests 12 feet away and bottom of my heart." She realized they might have been searching in the wrong spot. The words, 12 feet away, suggested that whatever they were looking for might not be directly beneath the monument but rather a short distance from it. Feeling a sense of urgency, Emily quickly got out of bed and immediately woke Jack, sharing her revelation. Jack, still groggy from sleep, listened as she explained her thoughts.
The excitement in her voice was enough to rouse him fully.
Understanding the importance of her insight, they hurried to get dressed and prepare for the day. They quickly made breakfast, barely touching their food in their eagerness to return to the monument. Within a short time, they were on their way back to the clearing, their hopes renewed. As they approached the monument, Emily felt a surge of anticipation. This time, she was sure they were on the right track. Together, they began to measure out 12 feet from the base of the monument, ready to start their search anew, hopeful that this time they would uncover the truth. As Emily and Jack measured out 12 feet from the base of the monument, they carefully scanned the ground for any signs of disturbance. They walked in a circle around the monument, moving through the underbrush and keeping an eye out for anything unusual. Suddenly, Emily's eyes caught a glimpse of something hidden among the dense bushes about 10 to 15 feet away. She called Jack over, and together they pushed aside the branches to reveal a stone, partially covered in moss and leaves. The stone was small and inconspicuous, but as they cleared away more of the foliage, they saw that it was no ordinary rock. Roughly engraved on its surface was a heart symbol, and inside the heart were the letters W and M. Both Emily and Jack felt a surge of excitement at this discovery. The letters didn't match William Winslow's initials, but they instantly knew what it meant. William loves Magrat. It was a poignant reminder of the love story they were uncovering. Encouraged by this find, Jack and Emily decided to investigate further. They carefully lifted the stone, finding it surprisingly easy to move, as if it had been placed there intentionally to cover something. Beneath the stone they found soft soil. They began digging with their hands, feeling the earth give way easily. After digging down just half a foot with shovel, they uncovered a metal box, its surface wrapped in protective rubber sheets. Despite the rust that had accumulated on the outside of the box over the years, the lid came off with little effort. Letters. Documents. Finally, it seems they have found something valuable.
What secrets were inside the box they found? What has happened to the Lieutenant James Cartwright and Evelyn? Let's see in the last episode. The biggest little city in the world.